Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Once again, we're live with HireMilitary on LinkedIn and Facebook. So today we're joining me is Ken Arsenault. He is in the Houston area, and that's where he's going to transition to and stay right there. So we brought him on today to hopefully challenge him, not really though, and just really give him some exposure, talk about himself, hopefully give some nuggets about his military transition and the programs he's using to be successful, and maybe how he's gonna really succeed when he finally hangs the uniform up for the last time. So, hey Ken, welcome, and hey, tell us about yourself and tell us how your military transition is going so far.
Transition's unique for sure, especially in the COVID time. Basically, I've got 31 combined years military service, 20 of that active duty.
31 years?
31 years.
You don't look 31.
I know. 20 years in the medical field and 10 years in the intelligence field with the TSSCI clearance. And then I did about 10 years of IT, civilian, corporate, before full-time military as a reservist. So trying to stay in the Houston area because my wife has a good job here. So that's a definite transition consideration, is if you're up for a relocation or not, and the whole family perspective.
It better be.
That's a big question you got to ask. And we always think about it's easy to just go find a job wherever we want. The opportunities are there, but if you're not open for relocation, that kind of starts narrowing down your filter pretty quick.
Which could be a good thing too, because you're not looking all over the United States. You're looking right there in Houston. And Houston is an enormous city. I think it's the fourth largest city in the U.S. Right. I had no idea, and the biggest in the South. So I'm sure there's plenty of opportunities there. And with your networking and what you've done so far there, it shouldn't be a problem. But that's why we're here now, just to talk about Ken and see how we can get him some exposure. But go ahead, though.
It's definitely a challenging thing going through the transition. I've done the TAP briefings and stuff. I think the biggest thing is there's a huge amount of resources out there on the internet, and there's a huge amount of agencies willing to work with veterans. And it's going out and finding those agencies, linking up with them. I will say one of the best things you end up starting to realize you need to do is get a pen and paper and start writing down all the folks that you're talking with, because it quickly kind of blends. You're like, well, I'm talking to this veteran group here. I'm talking to this veteran group here. And then, getting that resume is the big one. Most of us with military backgrounds, we're used to writing military-based resumes, putting our entire career on there, and trying to take all of your military experience and put it down into a one-page resume that civilian recruiters and stuff like that are going to is very challenging. I went through just a lot of searching, looking for military resume formats. Probably some of the best formats I found, though, were through HireMilitary, Combined Arms, a few other groups, and just seeing what they've done, and then taking that and then just start taking your experience and filtering it in, and then getting it to some of the reps with HireMilitary and let them look at it and help massage it a little bit, and then just start narrow down. Next thing I know, I was actually down to one page. You start finding out there's a lot of things you don't want to put on there as far as dating yourself, and you need to change your the nomenclature. When you say what your job title is, you can't put what your military job title is. You need to find a better way that a civilian recruiter is going to understand. If you put your MOS career field on there, they're not really going to know what you're talking about.
Unless it's the same industry. And speaking of dating yourself, you said 31 years of service. You said it, so I know. I would take it back. I mean, I'm proud of my couple decades of service, but I don't put it out there. But the grays, you can see grays coming in. I don't see any grays in your area over there, so you're fine.
That came out of my resume, so it started becoming just more transitioning, service member, eager for opportunity, whatever, and taking those things out. Education's been a while, so taking the dates out of that. My job experience and going through multiple jobs within the military whittled a lot of that down and just put like what I was doing the last 10, 15 years onto that resume. And then that way, if you end up getting an interview and you start talking, then you can then open up and go down a further rabbit hole with them if they want to ask you more about what you've been doing before that. My biggest concern, one of my concerns was creating some artificial gaps and then wondering what would they think about it if they go, well, what, you've only worked for 10 years? What did you do before that? So just putting the most current and relevant stuff. If you did something that's not relevant to what you're looking to do now, you might want to take it off.
Even 10 to 15 years for a resume, especially a one pager, is a lot. I read a lot about this. And I see many opinions, but 7 years is about, or 10 years depending on what level you're going into. But those are the time frames you want for, especially a one pager. Two pagers are fine. One pagers are great. But besides resumes, because that just shows you're qualified. You want to network, because that's going to get you that's going to get your resume to hopefully the top-ish part of the stack. So I was working with recruiting a few months ago, and when a resume came in through an automated system, I glanced at it real fast. If you didn't meet the qualifications, we dismissed it. It was that simple. It was a small company, but we gave personal feedback. But when someone gave us the name, said, "Hey, could you look at the resume for me?" We spent more time. We spent not just 15 seconds, but minutes, maybe 10 minutes on the resume. And we tried not just to find them that job, but where they'd fit in the company. So networking is so important, because they're going to be the ones that actually push your resume through and push you through to the interview process. And that's where you'll take over and you'll, sell yourself.
Right. Absolutely. And I mean, that's the big thing too. It's just, again, it's those resources. As many of the different webinars that you can find that helps get you exposure to different groups, different hiring and talent agents. Even if it's not necessarily an industry or a company that you might be 100% interested in applying with, but just hearing what they have to say. And then that gives you a better idea of how the hiring process works, how they're looking at, at your resume or your background and what's important to that company. And so just kind of repetition and a lot of it going through.
So what is it, Ken, that you actually do think you want to do when you leave military, whether it's in a DoD skill bridge opportunity or a full-time role after the military?
Well, what I wanted to do was, I think, try and marry the experience I had. I didn't want to necessarily rabbit hole myself into one industry. Mm-hmm. A lot of the thought processes in intelligence are the same in information security and cybersecurity, and being in intelligence and being exposed to the information that I'm exposed to and seeing the amount of cyber events that happen over and over, it just looked like an industry that has a long picture view of growth ahead of it. And mm-hmm. There's a huge demand for it. And because I had IT experience in the past, I was like, well, I like doing that too. So if I put the two together, cyber security, IT security kind of comes to the picture. And being in Houston, as big as it is, and oil and gas and energy and all that stuff, there's just a huge demand for cyber in the area.
And that's good for you, because especially when you want to stay there. And it's a good point you brought up, that your wife is established in the area, and you're not going to try to uproot her to the DC area or San Antonio for a job opportunity. It's now time for you or us as transitioning folks to, if your spouse is established, it's now time for us to, I guess, take a backseat to their career. So you're doing a good thing there, and hopefully she's happy about that. Yeah, I'm sure she is.
She is for right now. And that's one thing when we talk about the transition, and everyone thinks, well, I start transitioning 6 months before I get out. It really is sometimes a 2-year process that you need to be thinking about. And a good example of that would be the relocation thing. Mm-hmm. If you start thinking about transitioning 2 years out, you can actually start having the conversation with a spouse or significant other, if you have one, if they have an established career, and say, hey, would you be willing to go somewhere else? Could you find work somewhere else? And then that might open your window broader as far as locations that you could consider for employment. I've been doing this for about a year and a half now, because of all the stories I heard about starting as early as possible. But then you get to the point, sometimes talking to some people, you're too far ahead of the curve and they don't want to talk to you until you're about 6 months out. And then even talking with some of the companies, it's wait until you're 2 or 3 months out to apply for positions.
Well, networking can go forever. I've been networking for years, and I didn't even realize it. But applying for jobs, yes, because they want to fill those roles quickly. So, but networking into the jobs can start a year or two out. but applying for them definitely is going to be a shorter window or tighter window.
And don't be afraid to talk
go
to
ahead.
friends. Sorry, I was going to say, don't be afraid to talk to your friends and neighbors too, and find out, if they work for a certain company, ask them about something, or ask them what their company structure looks like, opportunities, stuff like that. And that's part of that networking. You've already got friends, but find out what they do. Maybe it's something you're interested in, or what the company you're interested in, and that's part of your networking too.
And that's networking. And you don't got to always look at the biggest companies. Like, everyone wants to work at Amazon. Amazon is a great company, and they're enormous, probably the biggest or second biggest in the world, other than the Walmart. But look at the small companies, medium-sized companies. They're all willing to accept the risk, as they say, of hiring a veteran, which isn't risky at all, because they bring so much value to an organization. But look at all those companies, and the Chamber of Commerce at each area, each county has those I guess, lists. Look at those and see what's available. Talk to your friends. Look on LinkedIn and do a filtered down search based on the areas, and type in recruiter. You'll find so many more companies that we had no idea existed that we can actually apply for just by doing a search. How's your searching going so far on LinkedIn? Are you finding it useful?
I am. Again, it's the networking. I keep trying to build my list of contacts more and more, and then I'll have some people that I don't know reach out to me, and I'll look in and see what they're involved with, and then add them to my contact list. Trying to get into some of the mentorship is a good thing too, and getting people that are already in the industry to talk to. Again, that expands your group of contacts.
Yeah.
And it helps give you feedback. From an outside perspective on how does your stuff look, or what questions you might be, needing to think about as your civilian transition happens.
Do you already have a mentor through American Corporate Partners yet? ACP?
Yeah. Well, I'm working with ACP right now, and they had a mentor lined up, and then it just kind of fell through. They weren't able to make contact with him, so they went back to the drawing board, found me a new one. So I'll be contacting them and saying, let's move forward, and they'll be putting me in touch with him. So I'm hoping some good things will come out with that. I've also signed up with Veterati, so I'm trying to get some mentors out of that one as well.
Yeah, both ACP, Veterati, great organizations. Listen, they benefited me tremendously on the way out. I had no idea what I wanted to do, but they can funnel you into a path where they can, I guess, open our eyes to what the civilian world has. So I thought I wanted to do HR, which is a very broad area, and they funneled me down to training and development and people and culture. There's so many different things, and I had no idea existed. All I knew from military was pay, benefits, entitlements, those things, and there's so much more. So yeah, and that's good. Has there been anything that maybe you had during your transition that you'd want to, I guess, recommend to others? Programs to use, tips perhaps?
Definitely with the DoD Skill Bridge or the internship programs, is try and pursue those as early as possible, because some of them have set windows, or depending on the area you're looking at, if it's not a large military town, you may not have a lot of companies that are familiar with the program. And so you might have to do some legwork and reach out to them and kind of explain it to either a recruiter or to someone in that company, to say, hey, would you be interested in participating in that program? Because a lot of times when they hear internship or something like that, they think it's something they've got to pay for. And you actually bring a lot to the table when you go, hey, you don't have to pay me. You just have to kind of let me come into your company and help benefit you while getting some current experience.
I'll tell you, for recruiters or talent acquisition or HR for companies, when they learn about the DoD Skill Bridge, and they see how valuable it is, they're jumping on it. The biggest thing is getting information out to everybody. I know Chris Thorne at HireMilitary works with companies on a daily basis, and he has some astronomical numbers that the companies in America that don't know about it. So he's reaching out to almost every company in America, just really getting it out there, because once they learn about it, they'll be like, I wish I did it sooner. Just like us in the military, I wish we knew networking sooner or LinkedIn sooner. They wish they knew DoD Skill Bridge. So if you're a recruiter, talent acquisition, HR for a company, and if you're watching this, first of all, thank you. But go to the HireMilitary site, register your company. There's no fees at all. Look at the company. Chris Thorne will reach out to you. tell you how the program works. We'll get a partnership and give more opportunities out there for people like Ken that want to transition and perhaps do an internship at your company. So besides DoD Skill Bridge, what else has there been challenges in your transition that you want to really help out with somebody on the way out?
I think it's just maybe even talk to other veterans that are going through it too, so you can compare experiences, because you kind of feel like you're going through it on your own, and you work with Hire Heroes or some of the other groups out there, and they help with you with a roadmap or help kind of give you some guidance. But there really is no really great guidebook or roadmap on how to do this, and so it can kind of seem overwhelming a lot of times, and you just kind of have to take a deep breath and just keep working at it. It's a little bit every day, and you make some great connections, and maybe the right opportunity will come along. But it's just started as early as possible, and just keep chipping away at it. If you got LinkedIn, or if you're already on LinkedIn, for military, they've got a 1-year premium membership out there at no cost.
Mm-hmm.
When you're within that 1 year, I think, of transition, that's the perfect time to sign up for that, because it gives you access to a lot more. It gives you some metrics, access to training resources, stuff like that. The whole thing is challenging, so it's just kind of keeping at it is the big thing, being persistent.
And if you're not on LinkedIn, what are you waiting for? Get on LinkedIn, especially if you're transitioning or you will transition in the next few years. Get on LinkedIn now. Build a good networking foundation, and like you said, mentorship. That is the key to transition. And you don't just need one mentor; you need a few mentors. Those that are going through it before you, those are like a month ahead of you, 4 months ahead of you, a year ahead of you. They will all give you different perspectives. Like I went through military transition probably 18 months ago. And I think my shelf life for knowing how transition works might be coming to an end in a few years. So we need people like Ken or other mentors out there that can step in these roles and keep contributing and helping people out. So mentorship is definitely a key to a successful transition. So since you're retiring, are you looking at the SBP? Are you looking at life insurance, or how's that working for you and your family?
Yeah, so I already had to make this decision on SBP, and we went ahead and we moved forward with that. Okay. Just kind of looked at the numbers and the odds, and it just seemed to make sense to go ahead and do with that, something that'll last long past me if I hit the ground before the wife. And then for the SGLI type thing, I did look, and for the life insurance, you might want to look at some other insurance opportunities, or check with maybe whoever your auto insurance is with, whatever. But I talked with USAA and a few other companies, and you might get better coverage at better rates. And it all depends on your age too. But with VGLI, the rates continue to go up like every 5 years based on your age, whereas you could maybe get a term life policy through your insurance company at a set rate that will last a lot longer, and then you don't have to worry about those rates going up and stuff like that. So you kind of need to look at all those things, looking at the healthcare transition, how TRICARE is going to work and stuff like that. You got to ask those questions or check with TRICARE. And suddenly you get used to everything used to be 100%. Now I got premiums and I got copays, and kind of getting used
it's
to
different now.
Yes, yeah. So
it's definitely different. So did you go ahead?
I was just gonna say, and on the mentorship thing, one more time. Even if you're going through transition right now, you can also already mentor somebody, because if you know people in your unit that are getting ready to transition 6 months down the road, or even within a year, you can start talking to them and tell them, it's like, hey, don't wait and start doing this now. And you can just give them some insight on your experiences, and it just helps them better. Because like I said, there's no one guidebook out there that says this is how you transition. It's just not going to be out there.
I'm sure there is there's a guidebook somewhere, but I tell you, it's conversations like these that lead people to really understand transition, because there's so many variables. And Ken, you're already mentoring right now by being on here and sharing your experiences. For your SBP and your life insurance, did you consult with a financial advisor or a professional, or did you just make the decision based on what you thought was right?
I pretty much made the decision based on what I thought was right. I just did my own research. If I wasn't comfortable enough, then I probably would have reached out and asked some questions to a financial advisor, something like that. But just looking at how the program worked, I just made the decision on, did this make financial sense? Did it not, for what it was going to cost?
It makes sense. As long as the spouses are involved and they help us through this, because ultimately, hopefully, it's their money one day when we pass on and they outlive us, because generally females outlive males by a few years because we take risks maybe we shouldn't. But it's their future more than ours, so I want them to be comfortable making the decision. Hey, there are a couple questions coming in, maybe for you. So, hey, Ryan Jones says, with the COVID-19 situation, do you think it's better to wait for the company you really want to work for to do the internship, or should you go ahead and do it? If there's an internship available and you want to do it, jump on it. If you don't get a offer for employment afterwards, you have that experience that you probably need for another job. So don't wait for the perfect opportunity. Sometimes that passes you by, and then your window closes. So I would say, look at all the opportunities out there. Register with all companies, get the best option you can, and then when you're in the company, like HireMilitary, for instance, we have many remote opportunities. Workforce Insight to be a consultant. We have TechQual to be an account executive. There's so many opportunities out there. Just do your research, get with the account managers for each one, and figure out what's best for you. Now, when you pick an internship, how are you going to decide which one to get when they're throwing them out at you, Ken?
I would probably look at the different companies and then see and read up on each of the companies a little bit and try and see if there's one that interests me more than the others. If I've got choices, if I have a few to choose from, if there's a company that maybe I'd hope to get a long-term offer with, as opposed to just getting experience out of. If I'm limited to the number of internships, obviously you take the ones that you can get versus the ones that aren't offered. But if you have multiples to choose from, I would research the company and then try and figure out which culture and company lifestyle is going to fit you best.
And definitely a internship or one internship is better than no internships, right?
Absolutely. I wouldn't turn it down if it was offered, even if it was a company I wasn't interested in staying with.
Because you might learn some skills. I know there's a few sales heavy roles that are coming out here now, and we're seeing a lot of people say, well, I don't like sales, I'm not a salesperson. These aren't those type of sales. These are more like business development, relationship building sales. It's not all commission based. There's salaries as well once the offer's made. So don't turn down or turn your nose up to opportunities unless you learn it. I tell everybody, have the conversation with the professional first, see what they say, and if you say no after that conversation, it might be a no. But also talk to people that's going through the programs too. Hey, find them on LinkedIn. Find out who's been through that program before, whether it's Workforce Insight, TechQual, Amazon, all of them, and find out if it's a program that they'd recommend. Because if they recommend it and they get a job out of it, it might be a good opportunity for you.
Right.
Good deal. So what else is it that you think that what kind of value can you bring to a company that if they're watching right now, what can Ken bring to the company?
I mean, I think with my experience, there's a lot of management, there's a lot of risk management, project management experience that we do, even though we may not have those, individual certifications for it. We do it in our everyday careers. In the military, we have those skills. We bring an extra level of professionalism and, caring about our, the job performance that we have. We're used to those, mindsets. So we can bring a different perspective sometimes to a company that they don't already have, but we've also been challenged by those opportunities, ahead of time without necessarily going after that specific opportunity or that specific certification. So there's a lot that a military individual can bring to a company.
Oh, that's true. And it's a good point too.
It's it's not always just our technical skill. It's just also the caliber and the quality of the individual that they're getting, with a veteran.
But there are ways to gain those certifications. I know the military is strong right now on certifications while you're in service. And then there's programs to get certified while you're going through transition, like Onward Opportunity, O2O. They offer a great menu, if you will, of certifications from PMP to IT to cyber to agile to HR, all types of opportunities, and it's free. You go through their training, which takes about 2 to 3 months. You test out, they pay for it, you're now certified. That certification now may be your new rank when you get out, because it's instant credibility of what, I guess, experience you have. So I get what you're saying, and believe me, if everyone saw our way, they'd hire all veterans. But
Right.
sometimes you got to get that certification or the experience or the degree behind you to even get through the interview process, get to the interview process. And then you go showcase your talents during the interview. All right, I'm looking through some LinkedIn comments right now. You may have some messages here when you're done, it looks like. So you may have some followers and some new connection requests. So what else you want to talk about today, Ken? This is your floor. This is your time.
Boy, you kind of get on the spot.
No pressure.
I think maybe just one thing, though, is if there's any recommendations or suggestions on how not to get discouraged going through the process, because it's not going to be as easy as you might think it is, and go, hey, I'm a veteran, they're going to hire me right away, blah, blah, blah. That's not necessarily going to be the case, because you're not just the only veteran that's out there either.
There's a few of us, right?
There's a few of us out there. And when you look at the job descriptions too, it's like making sure you read the qualifications on the job description. You might think, hey, this is a great job for me or whatever, but if you don't meet all the required qualifications on a job announcement, that's going to probably be a showstopper for you. So that can be a little discouraging too, because you're like, oh, gee, I really want to do this job, but you may not be the right candidate for it right now. But I don't know. Do you have any suggestions on like just how, when you might just have a good week and the research has gone well and the contacting's gone well, and then like the next week you're like, oh God, this isn't panning out well. I don't think I'm ever going to get hired. I mean, how do you kind of muddle through that?
Don't seem desperate. I'll tell you, once desperation sets in,
right,
it can be sensed, and no one. If I'm a hiring manager and you seem desperate, I want you to be a positive person. And I tell you, listen, I'm not always positive. There's days that my wife says, hey, you know what, get off the couch. I just don't want to. Right. But what we do is we get back in the rhythm. So if a down week happens, they're going to happen. Just get back in the rhythm, go for a run, go for a walk, go to the gym when they're open. Just go out and do something and get away from it. It's not all a 24/7 battle to find a job. But if we lessen our stressors when we're transitioning, whether you pay off your debt, there's so many things you can do. You don't need a job. Like for you, for instance, if your wife has a great career, your lifestyle may be maintained. Do you actually need the job, or do you want the job? If you need the job, that's when desperation can set in. If you just sit back and say, you know what, my finances are good, I don't need it right now, I'm going to find the job when I find it. But there'll be down times. But just take a breath, take a walk, and come back. And just keep connecting. Just don't stop. When you stop, that's when people get discouraged, they get depressed, these thoughts come into our heads. Just don't stop, reach out. I take text messages and phone calls until midnight sometimes. My wife's like, now who are you talking to? Someone in Hawaii, someone in Korea. I want to be available, and if you can be available, Ken, to somebody to reach out to, and if you want to connect with Ken, he's on LinkedIn. He's getting a lot of requests already. So just you'll get discouraged. Again, take a walk. How do you do it, Ken? How do you I guess relieve your stressors?
I think, like you said, it's like taking a break, and I just got to walk away because I could sit at the bar in the house, not the drinking bar, but the kitchen bar. I could sit there on the computer all day on LinkedIn or going through one webinar to another or something like that. I mean, I filled my calendar up sometimes, and I just like back-to-back webinars, and I'm exhausted at the end of the day. It's like all these Zooms that kids have to do for school, and they just get exhausted with Zoom by the end of the day. But sometimes you just got to go, I need a timeout, and I got to get up and go walk away. It's a great time. I've been working on projects in the garage. There's a lot of cleaning out to do, stuff like that. So, I go do that for a while. Maybe grab a book and read or just go get some fresh air.
Those are all good things. My honeydew list is growing. I'm not getting to as much as I should because I don't. I'm not a handy person. I'm more of a tech person. So yeah, you're right. Just get out of the mindset and just don't put all your thought and efforts into getting a job. Put it into networking to build relationships. These conversations will be helpful. I don't just do these conversations on LinkedIn Live. I do them on the phone, Zoom sometimes, but I take people out of their area, just give them a time to decompress, and hopefully it works. And we do this every day at 2 p.m. So those that want to join us and just come on and just have a conversation, that's what we're here for. So if we can get Ken some exposure, Ken some stress relief, we'll do that. That's what we're here for.
One thing I did.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say one thing I did too is I think I finally came to grips with taking the pressure off of me that on this day I retire and on this day I start my new job, and just kind of took that out of the picture and not worry about it and go, I'm not worried if I don't start a new job on day one afterwards. One, I might just want a break. Two, the right job will come when the right job comes, or maybe I'll just find something to do in the interim till that right job does come along. So I'm leaving my options open, and they may not be the ideal thing right away, but it's going to be something for a little bit while I keep working on preparing myself to be competitive for that right job. But I've tried to just not worry about holding myself to a timeline that says I must have this new job the day I separate, because it might be a little bit, and that's okay. And that took a big weight off the shoulders.
A couple more questions came in. Does anybody know of any tech companies that's involved in the CSP program? A bunch of them. You just got to get out there. Listen, HireMilitary has a bunch. You can find your own. There's so many other organizations that have partnerships to help transition service members get the opportunities. But we're always out there working hard for you. But get on the site. And that's from Anthony Ferranda. But just get on HireMilitary and check them out. Ken, you're approved on HireMilitary, and the search functionality is if you type in remote, you'll find a list of remote opportunities on the HireMilitary portal. If you type in Houston, Texas, you may find a little less because there's more remote roles right now, but there's opportunities out there. And like I said, even though cyber IT may not be available right now, they probably are. There's other roles though, account executive, consultancy roles. They're all out there. Try something at times that you haven't tried before, and you may love it. We're seeing a lot of I'm seeing a lot of junior military officers and senior enlisted members. They're taking these high-tech sales roles, and they're killing it. They're loving life right now because they make their own schedule. They get a salary. They get commission, so they can work real hard or not very hard, but they're making a difference, and their quality of life is so good now. Just give them opportunity. But yes, Anthony, they're out there. And there's plenty of things all over Houston that I know, Ken, you'll find those as well. Scrolling through the I'll tell you, one day I'm going to ask my wife or maybe a neighbor to come in here and just read the LinkedIn questions to me, make my life a little easier. But this has been fun, Ken. Is there anything you want to leave us with as we depart today? And you keep on your networking stuff?
I guess, after talking about it, is just don't get discouraged and just keep chipping away at it. It's not going to just show up on your doorstep. You're going to have to work for it. And you're going to have to work for it every day, even just a little bit. Your resume is going to change over and over again. You might have 20 versions of your resume. So don't feel like anything you do now has to stay the same the entire way through your transition. It's constantly evolving, and just build those contacts. Don't be afraid to join a webinar. Don't be afraid to listen to a company, even if it's not a company you're looking at. Again, it's getting as much exposure and as much information from the markets as you can. And every little bit helps. Even if you hear the same thing over and over again, it's repetition. It helps.
And you will.
Yeah, and you will. I mean, a lot of companies will have the same perspective on everything. You'll hear the same thing over and over again. And be willing to change your plans or be flexible, modify a little bit. We're all military folks. We're very used to being adaptable to the situation.
Yeah.
And that is key, is staying adaptable to all of this.
And I'll tell you, Herb Thompson made a good point the other day that no one's going to knock down your doors trying to hire you. You've got to go out there. And someone else mentioned that, listen, they're not going to hire you to be a veteran. They're going to hire you to be a skilled worker. That's what they're going to hire you for. So, hey, Ken, I appreciate you coming on today. We'll be on again Monday. Tomorrow I'm off. I've got personal day tomorrow. It's Saturday. Give me a break. So I'll be off tomorrow, back on Monday and Tuesday. But every day next week I'll be on live at 2:00 p.m. East Coast time. So those in Hawaii, get up early. If not, we'll try one in the evening. On Tuesday, we have I'm bringing on Lex Brown. He's a director of recruiting for TechQual. He'll talk about their program. So listen up, Ken. Hey, I appreciate it today. It's been fun. Smile a little bit, and listen. Your hair is getting a little shaggy right there, right? So the backyard haircuts aren't too bad.
No, not too bad. No, appreciate it. Thanks, man.
Hey, Ken, take care.
Great.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Bye.